Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving deep into a topic that's kind of quietly changing the world all around us. It's big data in supply chains.
Yeah, it really is everywhere, huh?
Yeah, and you might not think about it too much, but it's behind like everything. The coffee you're drinking, the clothes you're wearing, even the phone in your hand right now.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you stop and think about like the whole journey a product takes, to get from where it's made to you. There's so many different steps and people and companies involved.
And so much can go wrong too.
Exactly. And that's one of the things big data helping with, right? I mean, it's like behind the scenes, it's this massive interconnected web of all those suppliers and manufacturers and shippers, and big data helps make sense of it all.
So instead of like just reacting to problems as they come up,
Yeah.
companies can actually start predicting what's going to happen next.
Exactly. It's gone way beyond just looking back at historical data and saying, okay, this is what happened. Now we're using what we call predictive analytics to look ahead and forecast demand. So, like, knowing that everyone's going to need a snow shovel in January.
Well, it can get a lot more specific than that. Imagine being able to predict, say, a huge surge in demand for, I don't know, swimsuits in July based on
Yeah.
upcoming weather patterns or, even social media trends.
That's wild. Like, companies can avoid those situations where they suddenly have way too much stuff or not nearly enough.
Exactly. Reducing waste, avoiding stockouts,
Mhm.
that kind of accuracy can save companies a ton of money.
Okay, so we've got this crystal ball for business, right? But how does it actually work? What's going on in the background to make all this prediction stuff possible?
So there are three major ways big data is transforming supply chains.
Three. All right, let's hear them.
All right, so first up, we got forecasting, right? And we've already touched on that a bit. By analyzing like a ton of data points, businesses can predict demand with really incredible precision.
Okay, that makes sense. Anticipating what people are going to want before they even know it. So what's the second big benefit?
Second, we've got enhanced efficiency. Think
Mm.
about all that real-time data flowing in from, sensors on trucks, in warehouses, all across the supply chain.
Right. The sensors are everywhere these days.
They are, and they're giving us this constant stream of information so we can identify bottlenecks, places where things slow down, inefficiencies of all sorts.
Ah, so it's like companies can optimize delivery routes, speed up their transportation schedules.
Exactly. And even predict when a piece of equipment might break down and need maintenance before it actually happens.
It's like Waze, but for your entire business, right? Like always finding the fastest, most efficient way to get everything done. Okay, what about the third benefit? This is good stuff.
Third benefit, we're talking about risk management. And this is huge. Big data can actually help spot potential problems before they even happen.
Okay, that sounds like almost too good to be true. How's that possible?
Well, by analyzing all that data
Right.
from across the whole supply chain, businesses can start to pick up on things that might signal trouble ahead. It could be a supplier who's having issues, a potential disruption like a hurricane hitting a port, even signs of fraud.
Wow. So less time scrambling to put out fires and more time focusing on growth.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And this is all being powered by technology that's becoming increasingly sophisticated.
All right, so let's talk about the tech then. What are some of the key players in this whole data-driven revolution? And like how do they actually make life easier for businesses?
So there are a few key technologies we got to talk about. One of them is something you've probably heard of, IoT devices.
IoT, the Internet of Things. Yeah, I've heard the term, but to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on what it actually is.
So basically, we're talking about tiny sensors embedded in all sorts of things, think manufacturing machines, trucks, even individual products, right?
Yeah.
And they're constantly collecting data on everything you can imagine, temperature, location, performance, usage patterns, you name it, they can probably track it.
So it's not just like, okay, the truck is here, but, how's the engine performing? How much fuel is it using? Is the driver taking their breaks?
Right. It's all about those granular insights,
Yeah.
insights we just couldn't get before. And then we have RFID tags. You familiar with those?
Vaguely.
So these are like tiny little trackers almost that you attach to products. And they give you real-time information on the location and status as they move through the supply chain.
So no more lost shipments.
Right. You know exactly where everything is all the time.
I'm seeing a trend here. More data, more visibility, more control.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important piece, which is, all the online platforms that businesses are using.
Ah, you mean for things like managing orders and tracking shipments?
Yeah, all of that. And even interacting with customers. Every click, every purchase, every review, it all adds to this pool of data that helps businesses understand their customers better.
See what they want, what they need.
Exactly. Predict demand, tailor their offerings, the whole nine yards. It really is like everything's becoming interconnected in this data-driven world.
It is. It's incredible. But it also sounds pretty complex. I mean, how do businesses actually make sense of all this data? It must be overwhelming.
Oh, definitely can be. That's why we have a whole arsenal of analytical tools and techniques. We use a combination of things like statistical methods, machine learning algorithms, visualization tools. It's a whole science.
Okay, that's where I start to lose it a little bit. What are those tools actually doing? How do they help?
So think of it this way. Okay. Statistical methods, those help us spot trends, patterns in all the data. Machine learning algorithms, they learn from past data to make predictions about the future. And visualization tools, well, they basically help us make sense of all that complex information, turn it into something that, a human can understand.
Ah, okay. That makes more sense. So it's not just about having data, it's about having the right tools to actually use it. But let's be real. It can't all be sunshine and rainbows, can it? What are some of the challenges businesses actually face when they're trying to implement all this cool stuff?
Oh, for sure there are challenges. One of the biggest ones is honestly just data quality and quantity.
Wait, isn't all data good data?
Unfortunately not. Sometimes the data we collect is, messy. It's incomplete,
Yeah.
especially if it's coming from a bunch of different sources.
Hmm.
And then there are times when there's almost too much data.
Too much of a good thing.
Right. It can be overwhelming. It's like, how do you even begin to make sense of it all?
Okay, so the challenge isn't just having data, but making sure it's good data.
And that you can actually use it. And then there's the whole issue of trying to integrate big data analytics into a business's existing systems.
Right, because not every company is starting from scratch.
Exactly. Lots of businesses are still using older systems, right?
Yeah.
Systems that weren't really designed to handle this much data.
So trying to merge the old and the new can be a real headache.
It can be. And then the final challenge, and it's a big one, is the skills gap.
Meaning it's hard to find people who know how to do all this stuff.
Very hard. You need people who understand data science, machine learning, and supply chain management. It's a rare combination.
It's like finding a unicorn. So sounds like big data in supply chains is still a pretty new field, lots of room to grow and develop.
It is, absolutely. And as we move forward, it's going to be fascinating to see how companies overcome these challenges,
Yeah.
and really unlock the full potential of big data.
I'm totally curious now. Where do you think this is all headed? What's the future hold for big data in supply chains?
Well, there are some seriously exciting things happening right now. One trend I'm really excited about is the use of artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning.
Okay, AI? That sounds pretty futuristic.
It is, but it's already happening. We're seeing AI being used to improve demand forecasting, optimize routes, even automate all kinds of tasks.
So less manual work, more AI taking over.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, yeah. And as these technologies keep developing, we can expect to see even more innovative applications. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
So it's not just about like collecting and analyzing the data anymore, but actually using it to make smarter decisions, automate whole processes.
Precisely. And ultimately creating, a more efficient, a more responsive supply chain.
And that's just the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're talking about things like augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR for visualizing data,
Yeah.
blockchain for tracking products and ensuring authenticity, even 3D printing for on-demand manufacturing.
Whoa. Okay, so the future of supply chains is going to be really dynamic, really innovative.
It's going to be wild. The companies that, really embrace these new technologies and adapt to this changing landscape, those are the ones that are going to thrive.
Well, this has been a fascinating look into the world of big data and supply chains.
It has.
We've covered like a lot of ground today, from the basic concepts to the potential of these emerging technologies.
And it's clear, right, that big data isn't just some buzzword.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's a fundamental force that's changing the way things work, the way goods move around the world.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I kind of want to bring it back to our listener for a second,
Of course. It is about them, after all.
Right. So the key takeaway here is that big data isn't some abstract concept. It's transforming supply chains in ways we're only just starting to understand. And that transformation is having a real impact on all of us.
Even if we don't always realize it. Think about it. Think about a product you use every day. How did it get to you? Now imagine all the data that was involved in making that happen and how that data could be used to make the whole process better.
Yeah, faster.
more resilient.
It's crazy to think about, all the complex stuff that goes into getting that product from point A to point B.
It's amazing.
And with big data, that whole process is becoming more efficient, more transparent.
More sustainable even.
That's the goal,
Yeah,
right?
it is. It's to create a world where the things we rely on are made and delivered in a way that benefits everyone.
This has been a really great conversation.
It has.
We've explored all this incredible potential of big data, and honestly, I'm super excited to see how all these trends continue to unfold.
Me too.
We'll be back in just a moment to continue this conversation.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back. So, before we went to break, we were talking about how the future of supply chains is being shaped by big data and all this cutting edge technology.
Right, all that good stuff. But as we look ahead, one thing I think is important to consider is the impact all this is going to have on, the workforce.
Yeah, that's a really important point. I mean, it's exciting to talk about all the innovation and the possibilities, but it's natural for people to wonder about the jobs, right?
Totally. Are robots going to take over all the warehouses?
Well, it's not that simple, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely true that, as supply chains become more automated and data-driven, some jobs are going to change.
So it's not necessarily about jobs disappearing altogether, but more like the nature of those jobs changing, right?
Exactly. Certain tasks that are done manually right now, those might become automated. But at the same time, new jobs are going to emerge. Jobs that require different skills.
Right, like skills in data analysis, AI programming, all that stuff.
Exactly. And, I think the key is really going to be focusing on retraining and upskilling the workforce, making sure people are prepared for the jobs of the future.
Yeah, I was reading an article about that the other day, how some companies are already investing heavily in training programs for their employees.
Exactly. And it's not just companies, right? It requires a real collaboration between businesses and educational institutions and even government agencies.
It's like a whole ecosystem has to adapt.
It does. It does. And, as we develop and implement all these new technologies, I think it's also really important to remember that we have choices to make. We can use these tools to create a future that's more equitable, more sustainable, a future where everybody benefits.
That's a really inspiring perspective. It's a reminder that, technology is ultimately a tool, right?
It is.
And it's up to us to decide how we use it.
Absolutely. And that's, one of the things that's so exciting about this whole field, I think. We're really just at the beginning of this data-driven revolution, and there's just so much potential for positive change.
Okay, speaking of positive change, you mentioned earlier this concept of hyper-personalization, this idea that businesses can use big data to create really tailored experiences for their customers.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the most exciting areas of development for sure. With big data, businesses can really understand their customers on a deeper level than ever before, tailoring their offerings to meet specific needs, individual preferences.
So no more generic marketing emails.
Well, hopefully not. I mean, ideally, it's about creating a truly customized experience, right?
Yeah.
Imagine receiving product recommendations that are so spot on, so aligned with your tastes, that it's like the company knows you better than you know yourself.
Okay, that's kind of creepy, but also kind of cool.
Right. I mean, think about getting proactive health advice from your smartwatch.
Oh, like it detects that your heart rate's been elevated and suggests you take a break?
Exactly. Or it analyzes your sleep patterns and makes recommendations for improving your sleep quality. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Okay, but, while all that sounds amazing, is there a risk that, all this personalization could get a little too intrusive?
It's a valid concern.
Mm.
And that's why, it's so important for businesses to be transparent about how they're using data and to give consumers control over their information.
Right, like let people opt out if they want to.
Exactly. So transparency, control, these are key to making sure that hyper-personalization stays a positive force. It's about finding that balance, right? Personalization and privacy.
We want to enjoy the benefits without sacrificing our, autonomy or feeling like we're constantly being watched.
Precisely. I think there's a lot of responsibility on businesses here to use data ethically.
But it's not just on them, right?
No, not at all. Consumers have a role to play too. By understanding how their data is being used, advocating for their privacy rights, consumers can actually help shape how all this plays out.
So it's like a two-way street. Businesses need to be transparent, ethical, and consumers need to be informed and engaged.
Exactly. It's a partnership, right? When both sides work together, that's when we can really unlock the potential of all this stuff while still protecting ourselves.
I love that. It's a reminder that we're not just passive recipients of technology, We have
Yeah.
agency. We can shape how this all unfolds.
Absolutely. And that's, what makes this whole field so exciting to me. We're really just at the beginning,
Hmm.
and there's so much potential to create, a better world,
A more efficient world.
a more sustainable
A
world.
more equitable world.
It's all on the table.
This has been such a mind-blowing conversation. We've gone from the nuts and bolts of how supply chains work to like the big philosophical questions of what it means to live in a data-driven world.
It has been quite a journey, hasn't it?
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on one more trend that we haven't really touched on yet.
Oh, I'm all ears. What's on your mind?
Well, we've talked about how data's making supply chains more efficient, more transparent, all that. But what about the actual products themselves? Do you think big data is changing how products are designed and manufactured?
Absolutely. It's having a huge impact on product development and manufacturing, like in so many ways.
I'm intrigued. Give us some examples.
Okay, so one way is through data analytics,
Yeah.
right? We use that to really understand customer needs and preferences. So we're looking at data from social media, online reviews, all kinds of sources,
Like,
right?
what are people saying? What do they want?
Exactly. And then we use that information to design and develop products that people are actually going to love.
So it's like crowdsourcing product development on a massive scale.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about, figuring out what customers want. We can use data to optimize the entire manufacturing process too.
Oh, how so?
Well, all those sensors on the factory floor.
Right. We were talking about those earlier.
We analyze that data to identify bottlenecks, improve quality control, reduce waste. It's all about efficiency.
So companies can make bigger products and have less of an impact on the environment.
Exactly. It's a win-win. And, it doesn't stop there. Big data is making personalized manufacturing possible.
Personalized manufacturing? What's that?
So we're talking about products that are literally tailored to an individual customer's needs. Imagine being able to order a pair of shoes that are custom made to fit your feet perfectly. Or, a piece of furniture that's designed to match your home decor exactly.
That's so cool. It's like having your own personal tailor or craftsman,
Right.
for every single product.
Exactly. And as 3D printing and other technologies become more common, more widespread, I think we're going to see more and more personalized products in the future.
This is all really fascinating stuff.
It is.
It seems like data isn't just changing, how products are delivered, but also like fundamentally changing what's possible in terms of product design and creation.
It really is. I mean, we're entering this new era of product development.
Mhm.
The lines between the physical world and the digital world, they're blurring.
Yeah.
Data is becoming like the raw material for innovation.
This has been incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights and expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure, really. I love talking about this stuff.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your final thoughts. What's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
If I had to choose just one thing, I'd say embrace the possibilities. We're living in this time of incredible change, and it's easy to get overwhelmed, maybe even a little scared. But instead of fearing the future, I think we should embrace it. Embrace all the possibilities that big data and these new technologies offer.
That's a really powerful message.
It's about seeing change not as a threat, but as an opportunity.
Yeah.
We have the power to create the future we want. And that future is going to be built with data.
So let's all be curious.
Let's be informed.
And let's work together to build a better world.
Couldn't say it better myself.
This has been a truly thought-provoking conversation. We've learned so much about the potential of big data, not just in supply chains, but in so many aspects of our lives.
It has been a really great discussion.
And we've also explored some of the challenges, the opportunities that lie ahead. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a final question to ponder. So we've talked a lot about how data is, changing the way things are made and delivered. But what about the way we actually, consume them? Do you think big data will change our relationship with the stuff we buy?
That's a really interesting question, yeah. And honestly, I think it already is in a lot of ways. Like, think about online shopping.
Right.
It's completely changed our expectations, right?
Yeah.
We're used to having tons of choices, personalized recommendations. You can read reviews, compare prices, all in an instant.
Yeah, it's true. I almost never go to an actual store anymore unless I, absolutely need something right away.
Right. And all that ease, all that convenience, it's powered by data. But it's not just shopping, Big data is changing the way we interact with products, even after we've bought them.
Oh, interesting. Like how?
Well, think about smart appliances, right? The ones that can learn your preferences.
Ah, yeah, my coffee maker knows exactly how I like my coffee in the morning.
Exactly. Or your thermostat learns your schedule and adjusts the temperature automatically. Or, your fitness tracker gives you all this personalized feedback and coaching.
It's almost like these products are becoming, partners in our daily lives,
Mhm.
helping us live better, be more efficient.
I think that's a great way to put it. And as those products gather more data about how we use them, they can become even more personalized and helpful over time.
Okay, that's pretty cool, but also kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like, are these things going to know us better than we know ourselves?
There are definitely privacy concerns, for sure. But I think the potential benefits are too big to just ignore. I mean, imagine a world where your fridge orders groceries for you before you run out.
Mm.
Or, your car adjusts its settings based on how you're feeling.
Okay, that does sound pretty awesome.
It is. I
Yeah.
think ultimately it's about creating this really seamless integration between technology and our lives.
Where it just works and we don't have to think about it too much.
Exactly. And big data is really the key to making that happen.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has.
It feels like we've, just scratched the surface of what's possible with big data, not just in supply chains, but in like every aspect of our lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We're just at the beginning. The next few years, they're going to be wild. All these new technologies, new applications, it's going to be amazing to watch it unfold.
I'm curious, what advice would you give to someone who's, maybe listening to this and thinking, this is cool, I want to learn more?
Well, I think the first thing is just to be curious,
Read stuff, research.
right? Read articles, listen to podcasts like this one. There are tons of resources online.
Yeah, it's amazing how much information is out there.
It is. And then, once you've got a basic understanding, start developing your skills. There are tons of great online courses, boot camps even, where you can learn about data analysis, programming, machine learning.
Yeah, learning by doing is the best way.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And don't be afraid to experiment, you know? Try things out. And the other thing I'd say is, network with other people who are into this stuff.
Find your tribe.
Exactly. Go to conferences, join online forums, connect with people on LinkedIn. The more you engage with that community, the more opportunities you'll have to learn and grow.
That's great advice.
It is. And honestly, it's such an exciting time to be involved in this field. It's just incredible to think about all the possibilities that are opening up.
It really is.
And I'm excited to see what happens next.
Me too. And I hope our listeners are feeling, inspired to learn more and maybe even, help shape this future that we keep talking about.
I hope so too.
Well, this brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of big data. It's been an amazing journey, and we've covered a lot of ground, from the way things are made to the way we live our lives.
It's been a really great conversation.
And I think, if there's one thing I hope everyone takes away from this, it's that data isn't just some abstract concept. It's something that's affecting all of us in ways we may not even realize. And it has the potential to truly make our lives better.
It does.
It can make things more efficient, more sustainable, more equitable.
Absolutely.
So let's all try to use it wisely, be aware of the risks, but also, embrace the possibilities.
Well said. And thanks to all of you out there for listening. I hope you learned a few things along the way.
I did too. And until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and keep exploring.